Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Virginia Lacayo, PhD. She is a co-founder and CEO of Massive, a firm that coaches business leaders called to take on systemic change. Welcome to the show, Virginia.
Thank you, Kai. It is really, really a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. You are welcome to the show. You are welcome to India. And I'm sure a lot of people, not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what will be talking about. You are located in Austin, Texas. You have dual citizenship of Nicaragua and France. So this message is going to go to many, many places, I am sure. So let's talk. And we'll be talking about consciousness, business, and social justice. So my first question to you, Virginia, is to understand first your mission. What kind of work you do and what do you want to do? Because you like talking about, business, consciousness, social justice. That's a lot of things, to talk about. So that is why I asked the mission, so that people know who exactly is Virginia Lacayo.
Well, Kash, I can start saying that I've been an activist and a social change agent my whole life since I was a teenager. And I became an expert on understanding how systems work and change. And I've been applying all that knowledge and everything I know about mindset and about what history shapers need to develop in order to actually do that work, to challenge the system, to change the systems, to fight for social justice. And lately, especially in the past couple of decades, I start noticing how more and more business leaders are taking into that role, are raising their level of consciousness, especially social conscious, and they are leverage their business and their power and their influence to actually create systemic change. But I also realized that most of those leaders do it from just their heart and their intuition and whatever they have available, but they have very little guidance. And since I've been working my whole life, teaching, coaching, leading, working with people without power on how to change the system for the right, it felt right now, like that I should add this to my mission, is to teach and coach people that has power, that are already there, that have the capacity to make things happen, on how to change the damn system instead of just fighting it. Instead of fighting it for other people's right, it's like, let's change it. We have the power to do it. We had the advantage that nonprofit and governments can have, and we should use it for that purpose. So that's
Absolutely.
what we got Massive.
Absolutely, Virginia. Thank you for that, all the information. Now let's talk about, you talk about systemic change. What is this systemic change and who can bring in this systemic change? You talked about leadership and what a few of them are doing. But you see, as of today, even the President of the United States says, okay, they have limitations. So is the President of the United States powerful enough to bring systemic change? Are the business leaders, because see, leadership is in crisis today, whether political leadership, business leadership, and a lot of accusation is there that a lot of business are focused on just no purpose, only profit. Profit is the purpose. Political leadership also are passing through a lot of challenges today. There are a lot of questions as the US is getting into a new election, a new leadership. There are already questions about, about the type of leadership they have. So there are many questions that are going on around. So I want to understand what sort of, you also talk about systemic change, systemic leadership, system leadership. Help us understand in this backdrop, what does systemic change or system leadership looks like in today's time? Has the meaning changed from before? Is it the same?
Well, there's two topics that are combined, that are related there, but I'm gonna talk one by one. So systemic change is really you change a system, or let me say it this way better. A system that is a group, a family, an organization, a community, a whole society, a business, all those are systems, complex systems that adapt all the time to the environment, right? It's constantly changing. We can see that in the market, the politics, the ecosystem, the climate change is in itself a complex system. So systems change when the pattern of interactions of its elements change. So that's the way we change the system, when we change the patterns of interaction of the elements. How we do that? There are two ways of provoking, creating systemic change. One is, top down, by shocking the system into forcing it to change. For instance, COVID is one of the most recent factors or elements that shock the system into change. COVID hit us and everything changed for us. Our life changed, the way we work, the way we interact with technology, the way we relate with each other, the way we understand life, the way we define our priorities. Everything changed because the pattern of interactions of the elements of the system, meaning humans, but also technology, the world, traveling, everything changed at the same time. It changed the way we interact with each other. So COVID was an external force that shocked the system into change. There are other ways to change the system or to force it to change by changing the pattern of interactions. And there are many examples that come actually from the business world, from the corporate world. If you can remember how our life was, how we interact with each other, how we interact with work, with other humans, in our family, our lifestyle, how it was before Google, before the smartphones, before Uber, before Airbnb, our life was different. The way we interact with the world was different before those products and services and mindset and worldview were introduced to us. So those products, maybe that was not the intention. Maybe they didn't do it because I'm going to change the world and I'm going to shake the system into change, but they did nevertheless. So that teaches examples of how a business can introduce, create a space, create a new world vision, offer, invite people to interact in a different way with themselves, with others, with technology, with work, with the way we consume, the way we buy, and how that can create an impact that will make a before and after in the system. So that's what system change is about. So from my perspective, systemic change is intentional. It's like, I want to do something to leverage my business in a way that is going to shock the system into change, but change for the good, change for the social good, to make the world a better place because I change the pattern of interaction of my industry, my field, my community, my country, my society. So it's intentionally doing. You can do it unintentionally, but I invite people and leaders to be aware of the power that they have and raise their level of consciousness to think, what is my calling? It's true what you said, that leaders profit as being the main purpose of many of our actions, even for governments, to be honest. But I really believe, and massively believe, that we all have a calling. We all have a purpose in life. We all came to this world to do more than just profit. I mean, let's face it. You are successful. You make a lot of money. You enjoy life. You enjoy what life has to offer. And then what? You're gonna play golf for the rest of your life? I mean, what you're gonna do with that? How that's gonna fulfill you? It gets to a point, because we all have a calling, it gets to a point where life and what you have achieved is not enough. If you focus only on getting the goals, making achievement, making money, it's going to be challenging and exciting and fulfilling up to a point for a certain period of time, but then you're going to feel that void. And when you feel that your coping mechanisms are too expensive, to fulfill that void, or they're not enough, maybe it's time to stop and actually listen and say, like, what I'm calling here to do in this world, and how can I use the resource, the capacity, the knowledge, the experience, the wisdom, and the influence, the power that you already have, that are already built, to do something that is greater than me. So that's how we know that we are here to create some kind of impact and some kind of change. So systemic leadership, to answer you the other question that you asked, systemic leadership is a new paradigm about leadership. We came from the paradigm that leadership is about top-down commands and control. It's about predicting human behavior, predicting outcomes, planning in detail, getting all the information we know to make very detailed planning and very detailed instructions, and assuming that that's enough to make it happen. Systemic leadership, what invites us is to understand that we are that paradigm comes from Newton's machine paradigm, that understands the world as a big clock, as a big machine, that if you understand the parts, you will understand the whole, that enough information is enough to predict the outcomes, that you can replace one part for the other and everything is going to work fine. That's the machine metaphor. But when we understand the world and organizations and business and society not as a machine, because it's not, but as a living organism, you cannot have the same approach. You cannot be the top-down trying to predict and control everything and guarantee the outcomes in a linear way, that everything is cause and effect related and we can see the relationship clearly. Life doesn't work like that. Life and societies and systems are paradoxical, uncontrollable, unpredictable, but they can be understood if we understand the basic laws that regulate how complex adaptive systems work and change. And from that understanding, we can guide the system into change. We can facilitate process for the system to do what it does best, which is solving complex problems and change and evolve, because that's the nature of humans and that's the nature of systems. So a systemic leader is the one that understands the complexities of the system and work with them, not against them, but with those complexities to guide the system into a certain direction, hopefully for good.
Absolutely, absolutely. You are in a way global citizen, three citizenships of stay in the US, two dual citizenships of two places. But in a way, all I want to say is you are very, very educated, a PhD, and then you have worked across 4 continents, consulting, facilitating as a faculty member, also have been associated, worked for the United Nations, produced a successful television show. So you have traveled the world, you have seen the world, you know about the world. So I want to understand in today's time, what is social justice? Everyone talks about, the social justice, bringing happiness to the people. Leadership talks about, even business leaders talk about, to bring that, change for people for example, in Bitcoin, you see, their biggest excuse was that, they're talking about, we will serve the bottom 20%. And then you know what happened. Everything got fried. Yeah. So everybody talks about these bottom people, the downtrodden people, the masses, even in theory also, it's about the greater good. So I want to understand in today's time, what is social justice in your understanding in today's time?
As you said, it's a very complex concept, and it's been trivialized somehow. I mean, it's been misused in many ways that now sounds almost like a cliche. Because in most of the people talk about social justice and approach social justice as doing good things within the system. But if we don't understand that doing good things, even DEI programs and corporate social responsibility programs, they're like, I'm trying to do good, I'm trying to contribute. But if that doesn't change the system, justice is not going to happen. So justice is really, social justice is really about transforming the way we interact with each other and the way we distribute the resource available and create the right conditions for every human being and nature, by the way, to have the opportunity to thrive. So it's not as much as equality as it's about equity. It's to giving everyone based on where they are right now, their conditions, their background, their experience, their lifestyle, their ambitions, whatever it is give them the conditions, the opportunities, and the resource to be who they are meant to be and to be, have the opportunity to thrive in whatever they think is matters to them. That's what social justice is really about. So we don't have to, some people really, the hierarchies of needs. We should all be able to aspire to the needs that are more what make us human, that are purpose, contribution, philosophical growth, spiritual growth, instead of staying in the bottom line of fulfilling our basic needs of survival, of staying alive. For instance, for women in Latin America and Africa and some places in the Southeast Asia, that the purpose is just to, our mission or our goal as feminists, let's say, is not the difference between the North and the South. Is in the North, feminists fight for equal wages, equal salary, or third, unigender bathrooms. In Latin America, for instance, we fight to live, just for the right to be alive. So that disparity is what we talk about when we talk about social change. It's like everybody should be in a place, or should have the opportunity to get to a place where they can aspire to develop themselves and their community as humans, not just to survive as a species.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk about social justice in the US right now. In terms, there is, you are Virginia in Austin, Texas. In Richmond, Virginia, there is a song which is very much, popular nowadays. It has been on the top of the charts, called Rich Men North of, Richmond. So that means Washington, D.C., actually, for
Yeah.
all the leadership. And they talk about that it's about the working class, that, and it also talks about people. Uh, Pardon me if I'm not understood it correctly, but they talks about, people living on welfare, state
Mhm.
welfare, and how people have been misusing, some people who have been misusing. But it's about the spirit of the song is that, that it's telling the leadership about what happens to the working class, because all the taxes are going out of their pocket and all. So a lot of people say it is political in nature, whatever that be. The whole point is that earlier, in terms of the welfare state, was supposed to be a welfare state in the US, where a lot of uh, all these discussions, earlier on, there were a lot of, about women's rights. There used to be, there came derogatory words several years back, welfare queen, where they said that, okay, some people are misusing the system for the benefit. In today's time, when there is a huge sort of a uh, not hue and cry, but demand or talk about this whole welfare measures by the state for achieving social justice, there is a different class which is questioning that. And the business people are trying to, get much more control through their use of technology. As we can see, when we talk about social entrepreneurism, there is also talk of a lot of control using technology. We know about, there has been a lot of questions about Amazon. We talk about other questions about how there are questions about how they deal with the data about small businesses. How do you look at this whole paradigm shift in terms of social justice? Earlier, it never used to get questioned. Now it is getting, getting different questions from different everywhere. And this whole social justice seems to be, you don't know which side to go. The welfare state has to be there, but it's also a fact that many people misuse the welfare by the state and almost become lazy. How do you look at someone who is looking at the right kind of social justice, right kind of social entrepreneurism. But actually, you talk about something that makes you angry. I hope this also makes you angry.
Well, yes, I think I see it from the perspective of a scientist, right? As a anthropologic, from the anthropologic perspective, and also the system thinker perspective. Situations, phenomena, social phenomena like welfare, like homelessness, like domestic violence, for instance, institutionalized structural racism, all that is really part of a systemic problem. If we are not capable of stepping out of our linear way of thinking, that is very patriarchal, by the way, like top down, linear, cause effect. We've been approaching social problems as if they were complicated problems. That the only thing is like, this is a problem, so this is the solution. We're going to implement it. It's going to be complicated, but it's a linear relationship. Instead, if we start thinking about them as a really complex problems that has many things involved, that is not just class and is not just unemployment. Unemployment is just two of the elements of that complex problem. There are many others. There is a system, the whole vision and paradigm of the consumerist capitalism is affecting that. The paradigm of patriarchy, of white supremacy, those are big systems that work through us, through our mind, to analyze a problem and to find solutions that don't work, because we are part of the problem. We are part of the system that we're trying to fix. We need to step out and understand all the complexities of the welfare, that is not just give money to people that don't have it, because it's more complex than that. That's why we have, but also in developing countries. I mean, India is one of the examples of billions of dollars being invested in development projects that go nowhere, that actually achieve nothing in the long term. And it's because we keep thinking of social problems that are complex problems in a very oversimplified or oversimplistic way. That's why they don't work. So obviously it's gonna backlash, it's gonna create more problems. If we think in a linear way, and it happened many times, for instance, I remember a case where Nestle, the company that is in Swiss and that produced the milk, the powder milk for babies, they were trying to solve the malnutrition, malnourished situation of babies in some developing countries. And what they did is that they sent a lot of formulas, and they donate hundreds of thousands of formula cans to mothers to feed their babies better. We know that breastfeeding is the best way to feed a baby if you can afford it. I mean, if you can produce the milk. And second, that what happened with that solution that is linear, they thought, well, the problem is that babies are not getting enough nutrient. So the linear solution is we're going to send them a formula to get all the nutrients. What really happened, if we don't understand a complex problem, what really happened is that moms stopped breastfeeding to give them formula. And second, they diluted the formula to make it last. So children actually got worse. They start suffering for even more malnourishment, plus other social cultural conditions and psychological, emotional development, because their moms were not as close to their babies as they used to be, because now they rely on the formula. So this is an example of how we have been approaching social change and social justice and complex problems, that when we approach it from an old paradigm, Einstein said it once, we cannot solve a problem with the mindset that created it in the first place. We need to change our perspective of the problem to really understand its complexity and to really address or leverage the point that will shock the system or force the system to change how it works internally, and things start moving forward. We might not solve everything at once, but we're going to get it unstuck. We're going to get it moving in the right direction if we really understand.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, in a nutshell, uh, uh, looking at things in a much more positive perspective, in a nutshell, what would you advise uh, all these three important uh, factors in this whole uh, movement towards social justice? Is one is the leadership in businesses, as well as people who are benefiting from the system so that they can stand on their own legs, and then after their work is done, that benefit goes to the other people.
Yeah, well, I think we have to give make different people accountable for different things. I mean, individually, we are responsible ultimately for our the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we behave and we act in the world, how we show up. And that's our responsibility. Like, be sure that you are aligned, your values, your thoughts, your heart, your behavior is aligned with the values that you share, and you show up as your best in the world every time. I mean, and you keep growing. That's individually. But the people that we have already a different level of consciousness, and that we have resource and we have power, we have a different kind of responsibility, because now we are responsible also to contribute to a better world, to do something to improve society as we understand it works. And we have also different conditions to be able to see and to perceive patterns of interactions within the system that are wrong, that are not fair. And if we are capable of seeing that, we cannot just pretend to unseen it. We cannot just pretend that they're not there. We have that moral obligation to actually do something about it. Uh, Not everybody knows what to do or how to do it. That's why there are organizations like, or companies like Massive and other organizations that are willing to help you think with you, come up with a plan, come up with a strategy, and help you fulfill your mission. But you cannot just pretend that everything is right and you have nothing to do with it, because you're either part of the problem or part of the solution. And so is for everybody is, I think it's important to think how I am being part of the solution, and to what kind of solution.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is much to learn from you, Virginia, and and there is also your podcast to learn from. Tell us about Indom Indomable, if I'm pronouncing it correct.
Indomable is the Spanish word, really, so it's hard sometimes to pronounce. But indomable is a Spanish word that loosely translates into impossible to domesticate. And this comes from this theory that I've been working for many years, that we have to start, if we want to move forward and evolve as humans, we have to really start by decolonizing our mind. And when I talk about decolonizing, I'm not talking about, in this case, like the Spanish or the English, or it's not about that kind of colonization. We are now being subject of different kind of colonizers, and the colonizers are the systems that are keeping us oppressed, and that are using our belief system, our mindset, our fears, our emotions to keep the system in place. And I'm talking about four specific colonizers. We're talking about, I was saying, consumerist capitalism. We're talking about white supremacy. We're talking about patriarchy, and we're talking about institutionalized religions. And so when we learn how those systems are embedded in our brain, and how they use systems like that, are like propaganda machines. They make us believe that their beliefs, their thoughts are ours and are true. And we go by life not only unquestioning those thoughts and beliefs, but actually reproducing them. So we become instruments of the systems that are oppressing us by reproducing them, just because we haven't done the work of challenging our thoughts, our belief, and we haven't done the work. So becoming indomable is doing the work of challenging your own mind about what your mind is telling you about yourself, about what is true, and about what is possible. If we achieve that level of consciousness and that level of critical mind, true critical mind, and we learn how to master our ego, nothing and nobody has real power over you. And you become unstoppable in achieving things that maybe last year you thought were impossible for you to achieve. So that's what becoming indomable is. And I believe that every leader that is trying to fight the system for people's right or for their own right have to develop an indomable mindset, because if you don't, this is my theory and is based on years and decades of personal experience, but also studies about how things work. When you fight the system will fight back. And you need to be prepared for that. You have to have the mental and emotional resilience to sustain that fight, because it's not going to happen overnight. And if you are not ready for that, the system is going to use your thoughts, your limiting belief, and your emotions to literally crush you. And it happened all the time. But when you have that kind of mindset, that kind of a strong, clear, strategic, center, aligned mindset, the system has no power over you. And that's where we should all aspire to get that level of consciousness, that level of indomable mindset.
Absolutely, absolutely. As I said, there is so much to learn about all these things, and you are the master. Who better than you? So, how can people uh, learn more from you? What's the best way for them to do so? And a lot of people would like to connect with you professionally. So, what's the best way for that?
Well, the best place to find me and connect with me and send me an invitation and ask me for a conversation, I'm more than happy to get to know and to talk to a lot of conscious people. Like the more the better. Conscious leaders that really have a calling and want to do something about it. Let's have a talk. So you can connect with me through LinkedIn, Virginia Lacayo. You can find me easily. And another one is through Massive, which is my company with my partner, and it's massivechange.ceo. You can look for us on Substack and get uh, on our newsletter list. You can look for us on LinkedIn. You can look for us on the website. Anywhere you look for Massive, and you'll find me, and we can keep this conversation going. I would love to.
Absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.